I now call this regular meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. First, I want to start by talking about the streaming of the meetings. Normally, we've only been streaming the regular meetings. Myself, the board secretary, and the superintendent have gotten together, and we're going to try to get the committee of the whole streamed as well. We feel it'll be better for the public as well as the employees to be able to watch it while it's being live streamed. We just have to figure out a few details to make that happen, but we are working on that. And then next, I am going to read a statement here, and then we will start off with our meeting. The Davenport Community School District condemns the attacks on our nation's capital last week. The riots we witnessed and the violence we watched played out in the halls of our government are evidence of the great importance of the work we do as a school district and as a community. The behavior on display confirms that our words matter. Our words can inspire us to fulfill a vision of peace. Our words also have the power to incite violence. Our students recognize this, and we, as board members, educators, and community members, must demand more of our leaders and ourselves as we push for true equality and a purposeful anti-racist nation, community, and school district. The Davenport Schools condemns the actions of those who stormed our nation's capital and the words that incited this attack on our democracy. As a board, we will continue to support and stand by all of our students and staff. As a district, we will continue to strive to set high standards of decorum for our students, condemning violent words and actions, and preparing our young people for a civic life filled with truth, peace, and respect. Now, moving on, could I get Director Hayes to read the board priorities?
Yes, I'll be happy to. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students: to provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff, and to direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impact of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Director Snyder, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Our mission statement reads, to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. Our vision statement reads, education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and the community to answer the question, what if?
Student board reports. I will turn that over to Superintendent Schneckloff.
Yes, sir. Hi, my name's Asher Leverage, and I'm the student school board representative for Davenport Central. Nothing too exciting as of late, but finals for A term are over, so we're finally through with that, and we're all excited for B term to get underway. Most students are feeling better about our hybrid system now as opposed to the start of last term. The transition admittedly has been rough, but I feel that as a school we're settling into a bit of a groove, and just in general we're all excited about starting a great new term of learning.
Thank you.
Board reports. Any board reports? Oh, Director Hayes.
I attended a community Zoom meeting regarding the Juvenile Justice Assessment Center, and just wanted you to know that everyone on board seemed to be pretty anxious to get the center up and running, including the mayor, who had, a lot of input to say. The initial discussion of the project began with the summits in 2018, so it's been a little bit now. But this just kind of now serves as an update that the work is still being done, and is the desire of the team to cover all bases and get it right the first time, so this center is something that's effective and long-lasting for our community. And I wanted to go on record and thank Dr. J. Clips and Interim Superintendent Sneckloff for their work on this very much needed project within our community. Also, the board would like to extend our deepest condolence to the Gonzalez family in the transitioning of Ruben Gonzalez, who's been a para at North for 22 years.
Thank you. Are there any other board reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to communications. Open forum, are there any open forum? No open forum request. Consent agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes,
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
is there a second? Seconded by Director Potts. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, motion carries. Approval of bills. Can I get a motion on 6.01 bill listing, bill listing period of 12/18/20 to 1/6/21?
Mr. President,
Director Beck,
I move that the following resolution, which is recommended by the administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods of 12/18/20 to 1/6/21. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of December 18th, 2020 to January 6th, 2021.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, motion carries. Already down to the superintendent report. Okay. Superintendent report.
No report at this time.
No
Will
report.
be covered down in our discussion.
Okay. All right, items requiring action. Approval, 8.01, approval of water quality project.
Mr. President,
Director Hayes,
I move the board approve the water quality project agreement as presented.
Second.
second by Director Klein Jerome. Is there any discussion? Director Hayes.
When we last had discussion on this, we had talked about getting the information out to the neighbors, and I see where the letter is, but was there any response from any of the neighbors?
Hello. Yes, I was able to get to everybody that's just adjacent to the property. I was able to have some pretty good discussions with a couple of folks and some briefer with a few. There were only two people who weren't home. I got that information on Thursday, so it wasn't a lot of notice. With the holidays, it got away from me. But the gentleman to the north, which will be, I think, the most impacted because there will be an access drive right next to theirs who's pretty excited about it. Our consultant also met with him, I think when they were out doing some survey initially last year or the year prior, so he's been aware of it. And we haven't gotten any concerns or calls from him. And another lady was just very excited about the prairie. She wants to put some on her property also, so so gonna get her some additional resources. But I didn't get any emails or phone calls over the weekend either from any of the neighbors.
It also said on the letter that there would maybe be no more than one field trip a month. Is that like pretty, is everyone that knows about that on board, so it wouldn't be a mistake and be more than one?
We haven't worked out any types of schedules thus far. Typically, when we had programs with the sixth graders for water quality testing, that was just a one-time thing down at Credit Island, for instance. So that's an assumption that I made right there. I can't imagine it would be more than 1 month or once a month for groups, given the cost of busing and things like that. So,
Okay, just wanted to follow up and make sure that we say one thing and not do something different.
sure. Did we say estimated or? Okay, it says likely occur no more than once per month, so I think that does give us a little bit of wiggle room, but
Okay, thanks.
Director Beck?
Yeah, I think that would be my only concern is that we not limit ourselves to one field trip per month, especially since, the active time to be out there. Certainly it'd be interesting to do projects out there in the winter as well, but, I don't want to take advantage of the neighbors, but on the other hand, if it's an educational opportunity that lots of people want to use, I don't want to paint us into a corner.
sure, that's
Improve.
understood. And I hope that didn't pin us down too specifically. The intent of that was just to make them aware that we weren't opening, having a grand opening, large parking lot, to open it up to the public for larger numbers of people to be there all the time across from their house, so.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, motion carries. Discussion items. Up first is a citation update. I'll turn that, did I miss something? I missed 3 things, never mind.
8.02.
I was just checking you guys, see if you're paying attention. All right, can I get a motion on 8.02, approval of the modified supplemental amount for at-risk dropout prevention application?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes,
I recommend the board approve the modified supplemental amount for at-risk dropout prevention application.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Potts. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm assuming we won't have a lot since we talked about our committee as a whole. I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, motion carries. Can I get a motion on 8.03, approval of board secretary compensation?
Mr. President,
Director Beck,
I move that the board approve the board secretary's compensation package as previously presented to the board.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Klein Jerome. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, motion carries. Item 8.04, approval of policies. May I
Mis-
have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Beck,
the board, I move that the board approve policy 907, district operations during public emergencies.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
I'll just bring everyone up to speed. We did discuss this in December. This is basically a more permanent replacement for the emergency resolution that we passed in March. So this is a policy for allowing changes to the way we conduct business if there's an emergency. This extends beyond just public health emergencies. It could be any kind of major, officially declared emergency.
Thank you, Director Beck. Any other discussion? Director Potts?
This doesn't solely pertain to the whole district going online. This pertains to any and all school closures as a result of an emergency. Is that correct?
This is only to public emergency declared by federal, state, or local officials. So
Okay.
if we were to close a building because, say, the power was out in that location, this does not apply to that. Or
That's-
snow
okay.
days. It's
All right,
it's like a
right. So if
officially
there's a
declared.
water main breaks and we've got to close Wilson, it's not a big deal.
Not part of that. No.
If there's an anhydrous ammonia leak in Walcott, we don't have to.
Nope. Nope.
This only pertains to a significant national emergency.
Well, it's not necessarily national. It could be county level, but it's declared officially
at a higher
declared
level.
at a higher level than us. Yes.
Then I am comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Now we're on to number 9, discussion items. 9.01, the citation update. I will turn that over to you, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Joe's going to put up our citation spreadsheet on the big screen here, but also I emailed it to you, so if you would like to follow along, please feel free to do so. The first thing I want to do is review, because we don't look at this very often, I want to review the overall format of this document. If you look at the bottom, and Mary, I'm going to need a little, oh, I've got to do it on my own, don't I? All at the bottom, there are tabs with the different months for the updates. The first part, the overall part, this is the action that's due, who's responsible, when is it due, and then the overall progress of the district, and we'll come back to that tab in a second. The static plan, the importance of the static plan is it allows you to see the goal of each one of our citations. So as board members look at this, the static plan reviews the goals, and it kind of gives you a timeline of when things are to be developed or implemented. The action plan reviews for you the overall how the district is improving from month to month. So the first thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to start with our December update. And I'm going to lump November and December together because the things that led into December occurred in November as well. So up first in December, the first thing I want to review with you is the chart off to the side. Let me get to here real quick. So if you look, the numbering system that runs down the middle of the column, that's how we have to grade ourselves. And the people that are grading ourselves are myself and the directors and the people that oversee each one of these individual citations. If you look, a 0, not yet started, and then it's 0 to 5% complete. A 1 is started, and that's anywhere from 6 to 35% complete. 2 is working, 36 to 65%. And 3 is nearing completion with 66 to 95%, and 4 means this item is complete. To give you an example, we'll start with the things that are most relevant to the school board. If you look, our board training, obviously all of you have been sitting through this. This is a highlight and a celebration in terms of our citations because the work that's going on with Harry is really heading in the right direction. That's marked a 3 and 70% complete. Okay? And an update in that area for you guys is that all of your questions have been shared with the administrators and our district student achievement team. And from there, their presentations will incorporate your questions and allow us to have some continuity between what the board is thinking and what our administrators are presenting. So to go right down our list, for our December update, some of the highlights that we have and are that we've made quite a lot of progress in accomplishing our board goals. We have on-the-spot training. We're utilizing our questions. And those questions, as I said earlier, were delivered to our administrators. The flow of our meetings, I think that's a great step in the right direction from our agenda committee. We are, as a result of tonight, we discuss items and then we vote on them, and that allows for better feedback, better flow of information, and the board's taking great steps of that. The financial committee that reviews all of our financial reports, and we now have a routine that's established between the school board and our financial reports that are being done. The agenda committee has committed to meet 2 times a month, which will help plan our committee of the wholes and our regular board meetings. And in this citation, please excuse me, I'm trying to go back before two computers here. One of the things that is going to be coming out in this week's board report is the calendar of events that we have been working on as an agenda committee for your review. And I think that's a positive step in the right direction. In terms of our next step of teacher leadership and support, we have, let me make sure I'm on the right one here. We have completed all of the items in there: teacher evaluation, administrator evaluations, Iowa career development plans, teacher peer review. In this setting, we have database decision making. And if you notice on here, we've conducted some initial database decision making training. As you guys remember, the last board report that was done by our curriculum department had the circle of how we are going to continue to monitor things. As we move forward, this will be a next step. We need to start bringing data to the school board to be evaluated utilizing our questions. And so I have that marked down as a next step in terms of our citations. So this one is marked as a 2 with 55% complete in there. And in terms of our finances, we're getting ready to enter into our negotiations. And one of the things that we have worked really hard at is to provide transparency. So Lisa and her team and Gary Sinclair and Jamie Weinsroll are beginning to set the stage for how we enter into those negotiations with our bargaining groups. They're putting together a tool that the school board reviewed that is going to, I believe, provide a level of transparency that we haven't seen in Davenport schools. And Director Klein Jerome has been a part of negotiations for a long time and is had some good things to say about the negotiations tool. Each one of these citations is marked at 2.5, which is making a step in the right direction, and at 65% complete. In terms of our special education, I will ask Sandy Schmitz to kind of speak to the progress that's being made in this area of citations. Try and pull this up here, Sandy.
Thanks, TJ. There's 2 things that we're working on in special education. One is the individual citations, where we had to have IEP teams meet for individual students to correct whatever was found to be non-compliant within their record. We have completed all but one of those IEP meetings. We have, it's been a weird year, but we have one parent that we are continuing to make contact with to ensure that they attend the IEP meeting. We tend to be overly cautious about making sure that parents are in attendance. We really only need to contact them twice, and then we can hold the meeting without their presence, but we typically go well beyond that. So that's the case with this particular student. I think that we will be at 100% complete with this next month. The other thing that we're working on in special education is professional development. We have had the requirement for the last couple of years to provide extensive professional development, not only to special education teachers, but also general education teachers. This year, because of the nature of with COVID, but also more importantly, I think when we did the presentation to you a couple months ago, we noted that our professional development this year will be in the area of doing fidelity checks as far as our teachers able to implement the training they've already had. We had some things that we were continuing to find, and teachers had been trained on several times. So we're knowing that the sit and get wasn't effective, and now we're going to move into more of the coaching and identifying what teachers are struggling with so we can help them out. This is a little more difficult to say how far we are as far as being done, because it'll just be ongoing. For example, we did one thing that not only Davenport, but a lot of districts struggle with across the country, quite honestly, is called a prior written notice. It's basically a summary form at the end of a meeting. We did that early this year, and then we've found a certain percentage. We'll do it again and again and again until we believe that we have reached 100% or as close as we possibly can. The AEA has done some behavior fidelity checks for us. We're going to be doing more IEP checks, and in a few other areas. We also did some evidence-based training last summer for teachers, and so we're doing some fidelity checks for those teachers that chose to participate in that training, and they knew that throughout this year we would be doing fidelity checks as well as coaching them for anything that they're struggling with.
Thank you, Sandy. The next section of our citation report is MTSS. This is our multi-tiered system of support. This portion of our citation sheet is really on hold while we're moving through our crisis response violence prevention, our greatest need in our district. And so you can see the percentages haven't changed and the numbers haven't changed, and that's by the direction of the state too, so which will allow us to focus more on our crisis response violence prevention, which is the next step. Inside of PBIS, one of the things that I kind of want to highlight is if you look, it's hard to see if we were at a 2 this month and then a 2 the previous month. Well, did we make any progress? And so if you look in particular this citation, let me get to the bottom here. If you go to the November tab, you can see that on this one we were 30% complete with this citation. And in the December update, we're at 50% complete with this citation, meanwhile still in the 2 range. So that's the importance of the percentages on there that allow you to see if we're making progress or not. And in this one, I'm not going to speak to this one as much as because this is our biggest item, and so we felt that was important for you to have that discussion at the committee of the whole. Our bullying harassment is being worked on right now. And you can see inside of the bullying harassment what Jamie has listed as our current reality and our next steps for completing that task. Jamie, is there anything, did you have a microphone, Jamie? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, or is that pretty self-explanatory? Thank you very much. Okay, and the last part of this is our engagement. Currently, right now, we are seeking engagement through the crisis response violence prevention, but this is also one that I have marked down as a next step for the district to develop and implement that process of engagement. And so this is something that's going to move up on my priority list, because right now we are working that through our crisis response violence and prevention, but it's now time that we begin to engage in our community. One of the things that we have done differently between November and December is we utilized our CE consulting survey that the state conducted the last time that they were here, which had the input of many community members, teachers, students, and staff members, and other staff members to help build our crisis response violence prevention plan. And we did a lot of consensus work around that in the last couple of months. And so that was something new that I wanted to add to that. That concludes our December update. I want to go back to the action plan, which allows board members to see our progress. So this tab is very relieving or very gratifying to see, because you see every month we're making growth. I would say that there is a error in the sheet down here in the finances. I believe I may have deleted a formula. So that's something that Amy and her team at the state are going to have to fix. So I would say that this percentage is a little bit closer. So what this allows you to do is to see where we are staying either stagnant, or if you have a question of what was the growth like. For example, the board training, I believe, went from a 65 to a 70. So that's where you could check your percentages complete to see if we are actually moving, even though the 3 didn't stay the same. And so you can see our areas of growth as our teacher peer review was completed. All the necessary training, which is highlighted in the citation sheet, was done. And I think that was, we also had a professional development that occurred, which allowed us to move over. But you can see that we are making progress. We are not going backwards. And this tab shows that. So with that presentation, I would open it up to any questions that our school board members have. And
Director Beck.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions. My main one is a comment. I guess I'm a little concerned that so many of the items that are in yellow and orange and red still are the ones that are directly affecting students. I know the board trainings are low-hanging fruit, and that things like professional development and reiterating professional development do take time. But I just want to make sure that we are, it's just concerning when you see over a period of 6 months, something that is supposedly our immediate priority, it's still only at a 1, I guess. I'm not saying it's being done incorrectly, but just sort of my concern there. So I guess, what are your thoughts on that, and sort of the state and maybe the AEA? Shane or Bill needs to weigh in on that.
well, I think those are excellent observations and a very good point. If we were to try and tackle all of those other ones, we wouldn't be successful. Okay. So I think what we are really attempting to do, what we are trying to do, what we are doing, is we are singularly focused on implementing something with a high degree of fidelity. Now, the thing that we are picking, crisis response violence prevention, can hopefully knock down some of those. It's a high leverage action that we're picking. So I understand, and that is concerning to me, and we should be attacking all of that at once. But really, we are doing everything that the state and our advisors are asking us to do at this point, I believe. And so the next steps for this is, like, again, you guys know that we review this on Mondays and Fridays with the Department of Ed, but also we go before the State Board of Education to get their feedback on January 28th. And so they will see the same thing that you see and ask those similar questions. But I believe that we are headed in the right direction, and we are making progress along every roadmap that's laid out in front of us. The example that you saw from crisis response violence prevention, we are ticking every checkpoint that we have for that. So that is concerning to me, and I want to tackle them all at once, but I feel that we're following the guidance that's being presented to us at this moment.
Okay, I guess my other question then would be sort of more specific. This is for Dr. Schmitz. So students whose parents don't respond about an IEP meeting, I know we have to make sure that those IEP meetings are at times that are convenient for parents. So I'm guessing that requires some of our staff to be sort of at odd hours meeting. If students don't have a parent respond and participate, is there an advocate there for them, a neutral advocate?
Typically, what happens is if we make ample efforts to have parents participate at the meeting, and if they don't respond in any way, some parents will say, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Some parents will attend by phone now, especially. But if we have made repeated efforts and parents have chosen not to respond, which is well within their right, the IEP team would continue, or the meeting would continue with any changes that are made, and then an IEP would be sent to the parent. and directing them that if they have any disagreements or concerns, to contact the school immediately, and then we would hold another meeting with their present.
Okay, and so we don't have anybody currently who sort of serves as a general advocate for students who don't have that representation, or?
No, now there are advocates at the AEA that we have asked to participate at times.
Okay.
Not often, but I would like to think that the teacher and the principal are all advocates.
Well, I would
for the
too.
students here. Yeah, I know, but if there's a conflict after the meeting is held, then we have avenues for the parent, and we would get a meeting back together again. But it's also, we can't hold up
Right,
moving forward, because in some cases, what they're meeting for could be immediate need. So, but we do go above and beyond, I believe, to ensure parents are there.
thank you so much.
Director Poston, you had something?
Yeah, under finances, it talks about working on the 2022 budget and talking about March and April. Can we move that schedule up any? I was hoping the finance committee could start addressing this in February already.
I think our next regular scheduled finance committee meeting is coming up here, so let's discuss that.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, let's discuss it.
All right.
Good point.
Director Snyder.
On the, say, the percentages of completion, say right there is 50%. Is that a figure that we are putting at it or that the state is?
We establish those percentage points, and then we have to defend them.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question. What are we getting as far as an acknowledgement from the state that they say, yes, we agree, you are at 50%, just so that everybody is staying on the same page, you know, as we progress?
I would say that if we ever have any questions about the completion of things, that it's done collaboratively along the way. The example is crisis response, violence prevention. I believe that Shane worked collaboratively with the Department of Ed to make those marks. Is that accurate, Shane?
Jake wrote that, and then we just approve it at this point. And if there's any discrepancy, we would calibrate on that and talk about evidence.
So wherever there's a question, we ensure that we go back to the Department of Ed and ask that question. So,
And then fixing something is a different procedure than keeping it fixed. So say when we get all of these citations accomplished, what do we have in place, or what are we going to put in place to keep us from falling in this predicament again?
so that's an excellent question, and I think all along the way in each one of these plans, it's more about creating a system, and you've heard us all talk about this, create a system that lasts longer than any one of us sitting here, and that's critical. And I think you notice, it's easy for me to utilize the board citations because that's close to us.
Mm-hmm.
So the notion that the agenda committee meets this much, there's a finance committee that meets with the CFO and reviews this type of information that's presented. It doesn't matter who is in that chair or seat. The expectation is that the CFO will be transparent and move forward in that arena. So each one of these citations has a component of it that is systemic. And so that is an example very closely to that. The CRVP example is inside each building, there's going to be a crisis response team, and therefore we'll have a consistent response to a crisis inside of our building. And so that's what allows things to stick around. And so each one of those, that's what's taking, sorry about that. That's what's taking that's what's taking so much time, is developing more of a system. This isn't box checking, and it will not be allowed to box check. And I don't think anybody inside of our district wants to do box checking. We want to improve our district. So I would say that That's the key component to each one of these. And you can see, like, for example, in the finance one, it's financial structure. It's developed meetings and agendas that, so you see the wording of these are more systemic than they are box checking. That's a great question, great comment.
And then one last question, and then I'll sit back. Are we progressing at a pace right now that Amy and the state is happy with? And I know that's hard to say because you are not Amy or the state, but what conversations have you had with them?
I'll do this one. So myself and Vice President Hayes actually had a meeting, a spontaneous meeting with Dr. Lebo as well as Amy Williamson, and they were very happy with the collaboration and the willingness, especially of the board stepping up to some of the stuff, and as well as the district. So they've been very happy with the collaboration. If you want to elaborate on any more of that, but it was a like 20-30 minute meeting. It was very positive and things going forward and stuff like that.
And Dr. Lebo actually stated that when she's asked about Davenport, she can now say positive things. She's happy.
Good, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Oh, Director Hayes?
I don't know. I think this is for Superintendent Schneckloff. With the violence prevention, with that being ongoing, and a lot of things are tied into that particular, you can have a lot of these citations that tie into that. Is there like a time frame, or not rushing it at all, but at the pace that we're going to get it set up so it's ongoing, is there any timeline as to how long you think that might last? Will we finish it this school year? Will it be next school year? How are you seeing that?
Right now, we're on schedule for everything that's being set in front of us to implement the training and things of that nature. But Shane, if you wouldn't mind speaking to Vice President's question, did you hear the, okay.
I think it's hard to answer that definitively because some of it will be determined by the execution. I would say thus far, we're pretty optimistic that the execution is going to be there and the fidelity is going to be there, but time will tell too. I wouldn't want to overpromise and then have a misstep occur, and then we have to circle back to that, and that delays the timeline. And ultimately, all the CRVP pieces will funnel into a PBIS system. So that's what, when TJ talks about building the system, these are just the initial components of that, and then that's going to converge with an overall system based on positive behavior interventions and supports. So that's the long-term game plan. Is right now we're focused on CRVP because we have to guarantee that every child and every adult can teach and learn in a psychologically and physically safe environment, and then that will transition into the PBIS framework from there. But CRVP is it's the most important piece from the Department of Ed standpoint, just because of that emotional and physical safety that has to be there before kids can learn and before teachers can teach.
Okay, thank you.
Director Beck?
Kind of following up with that, I know when Dr. Klipsch talked last week about the training, the one group was asked, you guys had to train the group that trained you, right? So to sort of maintain that fidelity. I know time may not be on our side, but it seems like that might be a good way to go about a lot of this professional development, particularly, I mean, even what Dr. Schmitz mentioned about some teachers having to sort of be reminded of certain procedures. Or have we implemented that type of train the trainers process in all of these? Because that also would help us perpetuate this in the long run, right? If we have that sort of built into every process.
To my knowledge, that's only happened in the context of CRVP. And that was, first of all, it's a great idea, that level of reciprocal training. It forces you to engage at a different level and to provide some good coaching and feedback. I will say it's much more labor and time intensive, but the quality and the level of implementation is also commensurate with that labor intensity. But I'm not sure in terms of literacy, because we haven't gotten to those pieces or those MTSS pieces to talk about the nature of reciprocal training and what that might look like.
Okay.
Any other questions? I don't even have anything. Everybody else stole my stuff. To answer one of your questions, Director Snyder, as far as like ongoing board workshops, that's something we can do on our end, and I've already talked to Harry about doing some after March and stuff like that, because we hadn't done it for so long to kind of keep doing that. And then obviously the ISB offers classes. I think Kent's taking a couple of the finance classes, and we might see about getting Karen in those too, so it kind of helps along what we need to do and stuff like that. That's just small stuff that we can do. Superintendent Schneckloff, did you have anything else? Director Beck.
One more question. What can we do to facilitate this process and move these things from orange to yellow to green?
That is an excellent question, and thank you for asking it. If I had taken my advice and incorporated that into my presentation, I would have been next time I'll make sure to do that. I think potentially giving some feedback at how you would like this presented to you, maybe present this more often, maybe having more discussions about it. It's kind of clunky to look at a spreadsheet, so maybe this is the best way to look at it for you. Maybe it isn't, so maybe potentially having a discussion about how this is easily digestible. Maybe we select one section of it to review at a time, but just something that's always to keep it in the forefront, to keep the conversations alive. The second part is we need to begin to engage our community on multiple efforts. And so I know the school board has some wonderful contacts, and that's a next step for us to begin to engage our community, to build consensus on what our next steps are in both our long-range facility plan, which we're right around the corner, and also other consensus items that we may need to build. So that's something that the board will have to play a vital role in. Thank you for asking that question.
I do want to acknowledge that you do have a lot of the boxes filled out, and we greatly appreciate that with having, the data in there and someone's accountable for each one of those sections. So that's something we strived for a while, so I'm glad to see that that's happening. Did anyone have any last things they wanted to add before we move on? Seeing none, we will move on to 9.02, Operations Restructuring. Mr. Josh Hermansky, come on down.
So I've asked Josh to come and present something to the school board. One of the things that I want you to keep in mind as you're listening to this presentation, and you have some documents and board docs, while we're going through this notion of right-sizing our district, and we also have to make sure that we do not cut too thin in certain areas where we can't cover what's necessary. And so one of the things, what you're going to hear tonight is just a discussion item. We're not asking for action, but we want to put in front of you what we believe is the right-sized version of what it would take to safely maintain and operate our facilities in our district. And so Josh has been with us for several months, 5 months now, and he's got a great grasp. I think he's really learning our community, and he's doing a wonderful job. But he's here to present with Bill Schnaden what it is that he believes we need to move forward. I want you to know that some of you will see a potential adding here or there, but I want you to keep in mind that as we continue to right size, we're not adding. It will be balanced out as we move forward. But it's important to know that there are certain positions that a district needs. Now, what level? Is it an administrative role or is it a supervisory role? And so as you listen to these presentations at Josh's recommendations or discussion points for operations, just keep that in mind. Thank you. Josh, go ahead. Mr. Schnaden.
Thank you. So I started here 5 months ago and immediately had to start looking at the organization as a whole. When I first got here and interviewed and came down for the position, I was told we had a really great team of people working on the operations team, and we really do. and a number of them are all still there. We changed the roles a little bit. We went from administrative roles overlooking the custodial and maintenance departments, and kind of left those spots vacant for the time being. Coming in, my goal is to try to get somebody in those positions as soon as possible. Obviously, with the financial situations we've been in and a few things changing with the state, it slows down progress a little bit. So we've been trying to wait for the right time or what we feel is a better time to present this information. Right now, we have a person that's overseeing the PEPL construction position, and being that we've laid off quite a few of the projects, he's stepped forward and taken on a role of supervising or help supervise the custodial department. And in the maintenance department, we technically don't have a supervisor there as well. We have a gentleman in the department that helps and oversees the maintenance department as well. I think you guys are aware of that situation. We would like to right-size the department and put somebody in these positions for the long term. I don't foresee changing this anytime soon. I think if you look at other districts within the state of Iowa, I showed you guys a number of different organizational charts and things like that. These are pretty normal supervisory roles. They don't need to be directors or associate directors. In a lot of places, they have multiple supervisors overseeing some of these departments rather than one. At this time, we're asking for one to oversee each of those departments. We also are temporarily, potentially long-term, removing this PEPL construction person and splitting it into two roles within the maintenance and custodial positions. If you look at the PEPL projects, that's more related to HVAC, plumbing, heating, electrical. A maintenance supervisor knows a lot of that information. The custodial PEPL project supervisor also is good at like looking at wallpaper, painting, putting carpeting in. It fits right with their role. Why not put those things together and let them kind of be more efficient? We did a number of things. We met with Bill and I met together quite a few times. We also met with a member of the board looking at a few of these things. We just wanted everybody to kind of have some input to kind of put things in place. Any questions at this point?
I have one question on this chart, the yellow. Those aren't our employees, correct? We contract, and that really, I mean, you oversee the buses, but those people are not
So
directly our employees. Is that correct?
the routing specialist is our employee.
Okay.
That is one position. So she works directly with them all the time.
Okay. But the others are just through Durham.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Director Beck.
I guess my one question, just to clarify, the chart that you're presenting here is what you would like to see, correct?
That's
And so one of the main differences is the supervisor in brown, the maintenance PEPL supervisor, and the custodial. Currently, they are one position. Is that? Oh, no.
Currently, neither of those positions exist.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just needed to clarify that.
The district eliminated those positions, I believe, when we eliminated the associate director positions
Okay.
before I was here.
Okay.
The construction PEPL person that position's currently here. So we'd be removing that position at this time and moving that position into two positions, or kind of splitting the duties into the maintenance and custodial supervisor positions.
Okay, so we'd basically we'd lose one overall position and add two. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I think to just highlight a few things we take care of here in the district, it's hard to even comprehend if you're not there all the time. My background is maintenance supervisor. I oversaw some environmental services in hospitals, security services in hospitals, construction. Similar situation, kind of similar layouts within the organizational charts, depending on the size of the hospital. But we oversee 3 million square feet of buildings, 530 acres of land. If you were to take our solid surface parking lots and lay them into the roadway, it'd be like a 2-lane, 24-mile highway we take care of. within these positions. There's 150 employees that need evaluations, training, snow removal, phone calls, made to them, scheduling of vacation time. These positions also are kind of a liaison between building leaders, principals, and the staff, so that there's not always that hand-to-hand work going on. You don't want to bog down the principals with what they want to do with the students. These people help alleviate some of that stuff.
I want to add something to Josh's presentation. All along the way, we have priced this.
Okay.
So we have worked with Gary to input this into the projection model if we decide to move forward with this, as well as when we take things out. So I want you to know that this model has been projected and there are costs associated with it, and be easy to get that to the school board members as well.
Director Klein-Jerome?
These two positions then, do you have somebody, I don't need to know who, but do you have somebody internally in mind, or are we going to put this out for outside the district?
So, being that we're currently in a hiring freeze, I do have 2 people in the department. We could move right into the positions and they could do the jobs right away.
Would the pay be less than the associate directors or whatever
So I haven't nailed down exact pay, but yes.
but it would be less, so we would be saving some money.
Considerably.
For
Okay.
sure. It's yeah, for sure.
Bill, did you want to chime in on that?
I just add that, excuse me, I just think Josh has done an outstanding job as a new employee in our district in having the blinders off, if you will. He really looked at this from the outside in, and it became evident that there was a need to put some structures in place. And I don't know, Jamie, we probably met 15 times. We met every week and started to design what this might look like. And he had a lot of support from our new HR director too. And they actually started putting together job descriptions and what would this look like and what does the industry bear and what should it look like. A lot of research went on with other urban school districts across the state of Iowa. My kudos to someone in a new position to be able to put a new set of eyes on this, and that's really what it needed. It needed to be looked at without any history or any background, and it became clear to us really quick that we got a lot of property and a lot of square foot, and I love the way you took that idea and went with it, because it's overwhelming when you think about the amount that we're taking care of. It's one thing to build new buildings, it's another thing to be a steward of those buildings and take care of them and to maintain them, and we owe that to our public. And so this is really what we're looking for, is a way to take care of all these great resources we have. Nice job, Josh.
Director Beck?
Well, one of the things I was going to say was that description of the number of square feet and the length of our parking lots and things, that's fantastic. I think that needs to be like on the operations page of the website or something, like, did you know?
Some school districts do have that stuff listed, but
Yeah.
we just kind of threw some numbers together.
But I guess, shoot, now I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, I remember. So you said a lot of the construction projects were kind of, they've been put aside, COVID, that kind of thing. Since we're looking at, I don't know how many construction specialists there have been in the past. If and when, I'll just say when things go back to more normal and we start to see some more of these projects again. I know most of the actual construction is subcontractors, but does this structure allow for that flexibility if we need it in the future?
My hope is, I think with the team and the experience that they have, that we have within the group, I think we can handle a lot more than we probably give ourselves credits for. But I think we can do it with our group. If something really ratchets up, and I mean, I can't speak for 3 years down the road or something, and we're going crazy with buildings or something like that, things can get a little busy. But for the foreseeable future that I can tell at this time, we should be able to handle it with this team.
Okay, I think one of the things that Director Gosa has brought up in the past is project management. Is that right? And that you know, it's nice to have somebody in-house to do that so that we're not paying the extra cost of, you know,
Yep.
an additional contract fee. So,
Yeah, and we still have Eric Page here, and he's that SAVE construction project
Yeah.
specialist. And in myself, I have some background experience with construction as well.
okay.
So I've done a couple of construction projects with large hospitals, so I feel like I'm comfortable with helping along that situation.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Director Snyder.
So we did an early retirement to try and relieve a bunch of positions. And what I'm going to say is basically what it could look like from the outside. So we were trying to keep cuts as far away from the classrooms as we could. So we offer the early retirement, but now we're adding administrative positions again. So from the outside looking in, I could see somebody seeing that. And I'm not saying that these positions aren't needed. I'm not saying, but what would you say to those people? What would be your response if that question was asked to you?
I think if you're one of the employees trying to do those positions and doing those jobs, you need somebody there that you can go back to and talk to and get training from. If there's any issues, you need to have that in any organization, I think, especially with this number of employees. There right now, there's a vacant spot. You know, there's really nobody there for them to go back to. They can come to me, but I would have a heck of a hard time trying to do my normal duties and then try to evaluate and talk to and work with 150 employees. I can totally relate to that question. I mean, I obviously have thought about it a ton, and that's probably why it's been this long since we talked about it.
So in our early retirement, if all of our science teachers were to resign, we'd hire a science teacher. And I think that that's the answer. That's a similar answer to this. And it's very difficult in an educational setting to see this. It's a very similar situation. When we cut, we went too low. And so these positions went from associate director position to supervisor position. So the administrative title left. They're now supervisory roles because that's the right size. Right, we are currently operating without that. And as you can see in the past, when evaluations are not being done properly, what can happen? And in the last 3 or 4 months, there's been a fire at West. These people are there, and they're making sure that the fans are there, students can operate safely, and things move quickly. In order for us to move forward, Bill Decker and I have been having conversations about this. The savings that this could potentially have for Josh to do some of that project managing could be beneficial to the district. And we're looking at that type of savings as we move forward. Obviously, we're nowhere near bringing that forward for the school board, but that's what, when we look at this and we see that we don't have supervisors and people are stepping up and doing it, whether we do this now or we do it later, this is the right size. And that's what we're bringing to you guys for. So if we do cut too deep in teachers or administrators or paras, that's when we say, okay, it's time to come back, or we need this position, or we need a Spanish teacher, those kinds of things. We would hire it. And Gary Sinclair would tell you the same thing. When Gary and I were looking at this, he says, we will have to spend general funds to do things. We just really have to control it and then budget for it. So if this is what we decide we want to do as a district, then budget for it. And it will show up in the sheets that you see every month. Why did that go up? Why did that go down? But that is a wonderful question, and the public should ask that question. And the answer is, we believe this is right size and we cut too deep. And if we cut all our science teachers, we'd hire a science teacher. So that's our answer to that. But that is a wonderful question, and it should be asked by the public.
Well, and that's exactly why I asked the question. I mean, we have this list of questions here to help administrators put them into their presentation so that those questions are addressed before they're asked. we have an oath to the public to be financially and fiscally responsible. That's why I asked that question, so that we can ask it before somebody else does.
So I'll chime in a little bit. So Superintendent Schneckloff had approached me, I met with Josh, Bill, and we kind of went over some things. I was very adamant about the supervisor thing, because anybody who works construction or does anything with construction, you don't have an administrator over you. You have a supervisor that tells you what to do. And I didn't realize that when Josh was hired, he was told that we had all these things, that it was already in place. He would just come in and, do that. So in a sense, he was kind of set up to fail a little bit. Being with a construction background, I mean, you have to have a supervisor to tell you what to do. You just can't go out and do whatever, right? You have to have someone to report to if something happens. You have to have someone to report back to, and then obviously the director of operations needs someone to delegate stuff out to get things done, right? They were it was different being two construction backgrounded people in a room with two administrators, right? Because they were trying to figure out why I was going on about the supervisor thing. Well, if you're an administrator in like one of those positions, in my mind, it kind of pumps your chest out a little more, right? Then you're just, a rank and file person. You're just a supervisor. I'm going to supervise this part to do these things. And if I understand correctly, when we had talked, some of the salary would be able to be paid out of SAVE and some would be paid out of Pebble, so it wouldn't be a total hit to the general fund. So I didn't know if everyone caught on to that, but
We would have to verify exactly how much and where that would come from to be sure, but, yeah, not all comes out of one fund.
right, yeah, absolutely. But otherwise, I do appreciate you. Josh had I think 6 different papers together. I mean, he was ready to go. Hey, we should, these different things. So he's very knowledgeable on it. But obviously, with this crazy year, things happening, you need to have people that you can say, hey, I need you to go take care of this. And they know the people that they can, because otherwise you're trying to, that would be like us right here dictating to every employee in the district what we need them to do, right? We need to delegate that to the superintendent, and then he puts it out to his administrators, and then they put it out, right? That's kind of how this chart flows out. So I do appreciate all your time in that, and willingness to come today and kind of present this and get board feedback on this. Does anyone have any additional feedback on this, or any suggestions or anything like that? So if this was presented to us later on, everyone feels comfortable moving forward with this? You don't need any other information? You heard it here.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you for providing us with all of the comparisons in that research. That was really helpful.
Not a problem at all.
As Allison said, I would like to see those published somewhere.
Yeah.
No,
On our new website.
yeah.
Page, yeah.
Be some new wall art for your office, Josh. All right. With that being done, moving on to board requests. Five, is that right? All right, the first board request is from Director Hayes. Item request and agenda item. I would like to have a discussion on snow days at the next regular meeting. Why are you making this request? With the icy conditions of the last storm and the pending storms coming, I feel the board needs to have a discussion on how we'd like to handle snow days. When would you like this? Next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. Next board request by Director Beck, a request for information. Description of request. I would like an update on the status of our MRU with regards to SROs. Why are you making this request? It is very important that we know how SROs interact with our students and that we establish specific guidelines. The goal of this MOU was to evaluate the necessity of SROs. We need data before students are all back in school. When would you like this? ASAP. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. I think I did report on this before, but we were looking at doing a joint meeting with the city in February.
Okay.
Because they're doing their finance stuff right now. Next board request, Director Poston. Agenda item. Description of request. Have a discussion on hiring TJ Sneckloff as the new superintendent for Davenport Community School District. Why are you making this request? We need to create stability in our school district. When would you like this? Next board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Wednesday night, right? Wednesday night, right? We will have that discussion on Wednesday night, Director Poston. Closed meeting, yes, closed meeting. All right, next board request, Director Snyder. Information request. We have acknowledged the added workloads taken on by teachers and administrators during this pandemic. Teachers, especially special ed teachers, have been hit the hardest with the added workload. What can we as a district do to help these special ed teachers? Why are you requesting this information? Their attendance spreadsheet alone is a huge amount of work, let alone the prep time required to address each and every IEP in the time required. I can't read this other part.
In their caseload.
What?
In their
Caseload? In their case file. All teachers are hit hard right now, but no one harder than our dedicated SPED teachers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Beck. When would you like this information?
Whenever it can be provided.
As soon as possible. Next board request, Director Snyder. Agenda item. Discussion item, meet with the DPD to discuss school zones and what can be done to slow down drivers in these school zones on 53rd Street, for example. If there is no obvious enforcement, these school speed zones are largely ignored. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? Distracted and speeding motorists are a huge risk to kids. Our speed zones are in effect from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. When would you like this? ASAP? Are there any other board requests? Administrative reports.
None at this time.
Call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't need a roll call on that one, do I, Mary? Good. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.